3 seconds. That's exactly how long it takes to fall 50 feet. But for Donna Sterling, those 3 seconds on Christmas Eve lasted a lifetime. One moment, she was standing on the balcony of her penthouse, begging her husband to put the whiskey bottle down, her hand trembling over her 6-month pregnant belly. The next, she was airborne, shoved by the hands that once placed a diamond ring on her finger. She didn't hit the unforgiving pavement. Instead, she crashed onto the roof of a matte black Aston Martin parked directly below. And the man sitting behind the wheel of that car? He wasn't a stranger. He was the billionaire ex-fiancé she left 2 years ago to marry her attacker. He was the man she swore she would never see again. This isn't just a story about survival. It's a story about a fall that didn't kill her, but started a war. The snow falling over Manhattan looked like ash against the grey sky. Inside the penthouse of the Julian Vance building on 5th Avenue, the air was colder than the blizzard outside. Donna Sterling stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, her reflection ghostly against the glass. At 26, she still had the delicate features that had once graced the covers of Vogue, but the spark in her green eyes had been extinguished. She rested a protective hand on the swell of her stomach. 6 months. She had made it 6 months, keeping the secret, keeping the peace, walking on eggshells that were rapidly turning into broken glass. "You're staring at it again," a voice slurred from the leather armchair behind her. Donna flinched. She didn't turn around. She knew exactly what Mark looked like right now. Tie loosened, shirt stained with a drop of Merlot, eyes bloodshot and filled with a paranoid rage that had become his baseline. Mark Sterling, the golden boy of Wall Street, the man she had left everything for, the man who had convinced her that her previous life, her life with him, was toxic. "I'm just looking at the snow, Mark," she said softly. "It's Christmas Eve. We should be getting ready for your mother's dinner." "My mother!" Mark scoffed, the ice cubes clinking as he swirled his glass. "My mother, who thinks you're a gold digger. My friends, who think you're a trophy. And the world—" He stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the hardwood. "The world that thinks you're still in love with Julian." The name hung in the air like a curse. Julian Vance, the tech mogul, the billionaire, the man whose heart she had shattered into 1,000,000 pieces 2 years ago because Mark had convinced her Julian was controlling, dangerous, obsessive. "I haven't spoken to Julian in 2 years, Mark. You know that," Donna whispered, turning to face him. Mark stumbled forward, his face twisting. "Haven't you? Then why was he at the charity gala last week? Why was he looking at you? Why does he have an office in this city? He lives in San Francisco. He was just here for business." "Liar!" Mark hurled the glass. It smashed against the wall inches from her head, shattering into glittering shards. Donna gasped, instinctively curling her body around her stomach. "Mark, stop! The baby!" "That baby!" Mark took a step closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Are you even sure it's mine? Or did you sneak off to see your billionaire ex while I was in London? You're crazy," she breathed, backing away toward the balcony doors. She needed air. She needed to get away from the smell of liquor and expensive cologne that made her nauseous. She slid the glass door open and stepped out into the freezing wind. "Don't you walk away from me," Mark roared. He followed her out. The wind whipped Donna's silk dress around her legs. We standing 5 stories up. The railing was wet with snow. Below, the city was a grid of festive lights, indifferent to the terror unfolding above. "Mark, please!" she cried, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Go inside. Sleep it off. We can talk in the morning." "I'm done talking," Mark said, his eyes devoid of humanity. I'm done wondering. I'm done with you looking at me and wishing I was him." He lunged. It wasn't a stumble. It wasn't an accident. Mark's hands, strong and cruel, slammed into her shoulders. "No!" she screamed, her hand scrabbling for purchase on his lapels, on the wet railing, on anything. But friction lost the battle against rage. Her feet slipped on the icy concrete. Her center of gravity, shifted by the pregnancy, betrayed her. She tipped backward over the wrought iron railing. For a split second, their eyes met. She saw no regret in his, only a cold, grim satisfaction. Then the world tilted. The lights of the city blurred into streaks of gold and red. The wind roared in her ears, stealing her breath. "I'm sorry, baby," she thought, closing her eyes as the ground rushed up to meet her. "I'm so sorry." Julian Vance hated Christmas. He sat in his parked Aston Martin, DB11, the engine idling with a low, predatory purr. He was parked illegally in front of the apartment building he shouldn't be near. He told himself he was just passing through on his way to the airport. He told himself he didn't check the address of where she lived every time he was in New York. He adjusted the cuffs of his bespoke suit, glancing at the dashboard clock. 8:00 p.m. He should leave. He should go back to California, back to his empire, back to the life where he didn't feel this hollow ache in his chest. He reached for the gear shift. Crash. The sound was deafening, like a bomb going off. The entire car shuddered violently, the suspension groaning under a massive, sudden impact. The roof caved in, metal screaming as it buckled. Glass from the sunroof exploded into the cabin, showering Julian in diamonds of safety glass. He threw his arms up to shield his face, his heart hammering against his ribs. What the hell? A suicide jumper? A piece of masonry? He shoved the door open and stumbled out into the snow, shaking glass from his hair. What the? He looked at the roof of his prized car. It was destroyed, concave and ruined, and lying in the center of the wreckage, amidst the twisted metal and shattered glass, was a woman. She was dressed in a thin, red silk dress that was now torn and dark with blood. Her blonde hair was fanned out like a halo against the black metal. She wasn't moving. Julian froze. His breath caught in his throat, strangling him. He knew that hair. He knew the curve of that shoulder. "Donna," he whispered, the name tearing out of him. He scrambled up onto the side of the car, disregarding the sharp metal slicing into his palms. "Donna!" He reached her. Her face was pale, almost blue in the harsh streetlights. Blood trickled from her temple, but it was her body that stopped his heart. She was curled protectively, her hand still clutching her stomach. She's pregnant. The realization hit him like a physical blow. "Donna, stay with me," he commanded, his voice shaking for the first time in a decade. He checked her pulse. It was there. Thready, weak, frantic, but there. The roof of the car had absorbed the impact, acting like a crumple zone. If she had hit the concrete... "Help!" Julian roared to the empty street, his voice echoing off the buildings. "Somebody call 911!" He didn't wait. He ripped off his suit jacket and draped it over her, trying to keep the snow off her skin. He didn't dare move her, afraid of spinal injuries. Above them, on the 5th-floor balcony, a shadow moved. Julian looked up. Through the falling snow, he saw a figure leaning over the railing. A man. Mark Sterling. Their eyes locked across the 50-foot drop. Mark looked down, his face a mask of shock that quickly morphed into something else when he recognized Julian. Fear. Julian's vision went red. He memorized Mark's face in that instant. The disheveled hair, the loosened tie. He saw the lack of grief. He saw the guilt. "You pushed her," Julian thought, a primal growl building in his throat. "You pushed her, and now you see me." Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. "Julian!" The whisper was so faint he almost missed it. He snapped, his gaze back to Donna. Her eyes were fluttering open, unfocused and glazed with pain. "I'm here," he said, leaning close to her ear, his hand gently cupping her cheek, avoiding the cuts. "I'm here, Elle. You're safe." She coughed, a bubble of blood forming on her lip. Her hand tightened on his wrist with surprising strength. "He pushed." "Shh," Julian soothed, though his insides were burning with a rage that could level the city. "Save your strength. The ambulance is coming." "The baby," she whimpered, her eyes rolling back. "Save the baby. I will," Julian vowed, his voice dark and absolute. "I will save both of you, and then I'm going to kill him." The ambulance screeched to a halt next to them. Paramedics swarmed the car. "Sir, you need to step back," a paramedic yelled. "She's pregnant," Julian barked, not moving an inch until they had the neck brace ready. "She fell 5 stories. She's conscious but fading." As they carefully worked to extract her from the wreckage of the roof, a police cruiser pulled up. 2 officers stepped out, looking up at the balcony where the lights were now curiously turned off. Julian stepped back, his hands covered in Donna's blood. He looked at his hands, then back up at the penthouse. He pulled his phone from his pocket. He didn't dial 911. He dialed a number he saved for extreme emergencies. "Vance," a crisp voice answered. It was ruthless, efficient, his head of security, a former Mossad agent named Silas. "I need you at Lenox Hill Hospital. Now," Julian said, his voice devoid of emotion. "And I need a team at the Sterling Vance building. Secure the perimeter. Nobody leaves the penthouse on the 5th floor. Nobody." "What's the situation, sir?" "Attempted murder," Julian said, watching them load Donna onto the stretcher. "And Silas, get the best lawyers in the city. I'm going to war." The waiting room at Lenox Hill Hospital was a purgatory of white walls and fluorescent lights. It smelled of antiseptic and old coffee. Julian Vance paced the linoleum floor, a caged tiger in a blood-stained bespoke suit. Every nurse that walked by gave him a wide berth. The aura of impending violence radiating off him was palpable. He hadn't washed his hands. The dried blood, Donna's blood, flaked on his skin, a grim reminder of the last hour. "Mr. Vance?" Julian spun around. A doctor in surgical scrubs stood there, looking exhausted. Dr. Orris Thorne, the best trauma surgeon in the city. Julian had made sure of that with a single phone call and a donation that could build a new wing. "How are they?" Julian demanded, stepping into the doctor's personal space. "It's a miracle, frankly," Dr. Thorne said, pulling off his cap. "The car roof absorbed a significant amount of the kinetic energy. She has 3 broken ribs, a fractured tibia, and a severe concussion. She's battered and bruised, but no internal bleeding in the brain." "And the baby?" Julian's voice cracked. "The baby is in distress," Dr. Thorne admitted gravely. "Placental abruption. We managed to stop the bleeding, but it's precarious. She's only 26 weeks along. We need to keep the baby inside as long as possible. Every day matters. She's in a medically induced coma to let her body heal and keep her stress levels down." Julian let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Alive. They were alive. "Can I see her?" "Briefly. She's in the ICU." Julian walked into the room like he was entering a cathedral. The rhythmic beeping of the monitors was the only sound. Donna looked so small in the hospital bed, wires and tubes creating a web around her. Her face was swollen, purple bruising blooming across her cheekbone. He pulled a chair up to the bedside and sat down, taking her limp hand in his. It felt cold. "I'm here," he whispered again. "I'm not leaving." The door opened behind him. It wasn't a nurse. Mr. Vance. Julian didn't turn. He recognized the heavy tread of Detective Miller, NYPD. He had met him briefly at the scene. "Detective," Julian said, his eyes still on Donna's face. "We need a statement. We went up to the apartment. Mr. Sterling claims she jumped. Said she was depressed. Suicidal. Said she's been unstable for months." Julian stood up slowly and turned to face the detective. His expression was terrifyingly calm. "She didn't jump. She was pushed. It's he said she said right now, Mr. Vance. There were no witnesses on the balcony, and given your history with the victim, your testimony is biased." "My history?" Julian laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "My history is that I know her. Donna is a fighter. She is pregnant. She would never endanger that child. And before she lost consciousness, she told me he pushed her." "Hearsay from a trauma victim under duress," Miller said, scribbling in his notebook. "Look, we're investigating, but Sterling comes from a powerful family. Unless we have hard proof, he's going to walk by morning." "Hard proof," Julian repeated. He looked back at Donna. "Get out." "Excuse me? Get out of my room. Go do your job. If you let him walk, you're incompetent. If you let him walk, I will handle it." Miller stiffened but nodded, backing out of the room. As the door clicked shut, Julian pulled out his phone again. He dialed Silas. "Tell me you found something." "The Sterling penthouse has a security system." Silas's voice crackled, but the cameras on the balcony were turned off at 7:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the fall. "Convenient," Julian growled. "However," Silas continued, "I pulled the footage from the building. Across the street, a bank. Their ATM camera captures a slice of the 5th-floor balcony. It's grainy. Distance is an issue. Enhance it. I don't care what it costs. Get the best tech in the world on it. I want to see his hands on her. I'm on it. But Julian, Mark Sterling is already spinning the narrative. He's on the news." Julian walked to the small TV mounted in the corner of the room and turned it on. There, on a local news channel, stood Mark Sterling. He was outside the police station, wearing a fresh suit, looking devastated. A lawyer stood by his side. "My wife, my poor Donna," Mark sobbed into the microphones, wiping away a fake tear. "She's been struggling with prenatal depression. I tried to stop her. I tried to grab her hand, but she let go. I just pray for her and our unborn child." Julian stared at the screen, his knuckles white as he gripped the remote. He watched the performance of a sociopath. "Enjoy your spotlight, Mark," Julian whispered to the screen. "Because I'm about to burn your stage to the ground." 3 days passed. 3 days of Julian sleeping in the uncomfortable chair, running his empire from an iPad, and watching Donna's chest rise and fall. On the 4th morning, her eyes opened. It wasn't like the movies. There was no sudden clarity. There was confusion, panic, the beeping of monitors speeding up as her heart rate spiked. "Donna! Donna, look at me!" Julian stood over her, his hands hovering. "Mark!" she gasped, her voice raspy from the intubation tube that had just been removed hours prior. She tried to sit up, wincing in agony. Don't touch me. It's Julian, it's me." She froze, her eyes focused, swimming with tears. "Julian." She looked around the room, the reality crashing down on her. The fall, the car, the cold pavement. "My baby." "She's okay," Julian said quickly. "It's a girl, Donna. She's still inside. She's fighting, just like her mother." Donna collapsed back against the pillows, sobbing. "He tried to kill us. He accused me of sleeping with you." Julian's jaw tightened. "I know. He's saying you jumped, Donna. He's telling the world you were suicidal." "I wasn't." She gripped his hand, her nails digging into his skin. "I wanted to leave him. I told him I was leaving. That's why he did it." "We need to tell the police," Julian said. "Detective Miller is coming back today." Just then, the door swung open. But it wasn't the detective. It was a woman in a Chanel suit, carrying a bouquet of white lilies that looked more like funeral flowers than a get-well gift. Beside her walked Mark Sterling. Donna let out a sharp cry of terror. "Well, well," the woman said, her voice like poisoned honey. It was Victoria Sterling, Mark's mother. The matriarch of the Sterling family, a woman who terrified socialites and senators alike. "Awake, are we?" "Get him out," Donna whispered, shaking. "Get him out of here." Julian stepped between the bed and the door, his frame blocking their view of Donna. "You have 5 seconds to leave before I remove you myself." "Relax, Mr. Vance," Mark said, stepping forward. He looked rested, smug. "I'm just here to see my wife. The police said she's awake. I have a right." "You have no rights," Julian snarled. "Actually, I do," Mark smiled, pulling a document from his jacket pocket. "As her husband and next of kin, I have power of attorney, and I've decided that her care here is inadequate. I'm transferring her to a private facility, one closer to my estate, where she can get the psychiatric help she clearly needs." "No!" Donna screamed. "He'll kill me! Julian, don't let him take me!" Julian snatched the paper from Mark's hand. He scanned it. It was a standard medical proxy signed when they got married. "This is void if you attempted to murder her," Julian said, crumpling the paper. "Allegedly," Victoria interjected coolly. "According to the police report, it's an accident caused by her mental state. Unless you have proof otherwise." "No, I didn't think so." She motioned to the hallway. 2 private security guards stepped into view, followed by a private ambulance crew. "We're taking her. Now." Julian didn't move. He stood like a statue, his mind racing. If they took her, she would disappear. She would complain of complications and die, or commit suicide in her room. He knew how these people worked. "Silas," Julian said loudly to the empty room. From the bathroom door inside the suite, which had been closed, Silas stepped out. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing tactical gear. "Sir?" "Lockdown protocol," Julian said. Silas pressed a button on his phone. The heavy electronic lock on the ICU door slammed shut with a definitive thud, sealing Mark, Victoria, and their goons in the hallway, separated from the room by thick glass. Mark banged on the glass, mouthing obscenities. Victoria looked furious, tapping on her phone. "You can't keep them out forever," Silas warned quietly. "They have a court order. The police will be here in 10 minutes to enforce it." Julian turned to Donna. She was hyperventilating. "Do you trust me?" Julian asked, staring deep into her eyes. "Yes," she sobbed. "Always." "Then we're leaving. Not with them. With me." "How?" she asked. "I can't walk." Julian ripped the IVs from the stand, handing the bags to Silas. He scooped Donna up into his arms, ignoring the strain, ignoring the fact that he was kidnapping a patient from a hospital. "We're going to the roof," Julian said to Silas. "Call the helicopter. Tell the pilot we need a hot extraction. Now." "Julian, this is kidnapping," Silas said, even as he opened the service door at the back of the room. "You'll be a fugitive." "I'd rather be a fugitive than attend her funeral," Julian said. He looked down at Donna in his arms. "Hold on tight." As the sirens approached the hospital entrance below, Julian Vance carried the woman he loved up the stairwell toward the sky, running away from the law to save her life. The helicopter touched down in a swirl of white powder on a private landing pad deep in the Adirondack Mountains. This was the Eyrie, Julian's most secluded estate, a modern fortress of glass and steel perched on a cliff edge, surrounded by thousands of acres of dense, snowy forest. Julian carried Donna into the master suite, laying her gently on the massive bed that overlooked the frozen wilderness. She was exhausted, the adrenaline of the escape fading into a deep, bone-weary ache. "You're a fugitive now," Donna whispered as he adjusted the pillows around her cast. Her voice was thick with guilt. "Because of me. I have the best lawyers in the country filing emergency injunctions as we speak," Julian said, dismissing the danger with a wave of his hand. He sat on the edge of the bed, his dark eyes scanning her face for signs of pain. "They can't arrest me for saving a woman from her murderer. But until we prove he pushed you, we stay here. No phones, no internet, just us." For the next week, the world outside ceased to exist. It was a strange, suspended reality. Julian, the billionaire CEO who usually commanded armies of employees, became her nurse. He spoon-fed her soup, helped her to the bathroom, and read to her when the painkillers made her vision blur. One evening, as the fire crackled in the hearth, the silence between them broke. "Why did you leave me, Elle?" Julian asked. He wasn't looking at her. He was staring into the flames, a glass of scotch in his hand. "2 years ago, you just vanished. And 3 months later, you were with him." Donna looked down at her hands, resting on her pregnant belly. "Mark told me. He told me you were having me followed. He showed me photos. He said you were obsessed, that you saw me as a possession. He said he was the only one who could protect me." Julian turned, his eyes wide with horror. "I never had you followed. I know that now," she choked out. "But he was so convincing. He isolated me. Slowly. First it was my friends, then my family, then you. By the time I realized he was the dangerous one, I was married, pregnant, and trapped. He controlled every penny, every phone call." Julian set his glass down, the sound sharp in the quiet room. He walked over and knelt beside the bed, placing his hand over hers on her stomach. "I am going to destroy him," Julian swore, his voice low and vibrating with intensity, not just for the balcony, but for every single day he made you live in fear. The door to the suite opened. It was Silas. He looked grim. "We have a problem," Silas said. "The police aren't just looking for you, Julian. Mark has gone on national television. He's offering a $5 million reward for information leading to the safe return of his wife. He's painting you as a maniac who kidnapped a mentally unstable pregnant woman." "Let him talk," Julian spat. "Did the tech team enhance the ATM footage?" "They did." Silas nodded. He pulled a tablet from his tactical vest. "It's not perfect. You can't see his face clearly, but—" He tapped the screen. Julian and Donna leaned in. The grainy black-and-white video showed 2 figures on the balcony. One pushed the other. But it was what happened before the push that mattered. "Look at his hand," Silas pointed. "Right before he shoves you, he checks his watch." "So?" Donna asked. "He checks it 3 times in 10 seconds, Silas explained, like he was timing it. And look at the street below." On the edge of the frame, a black van was idling. The moment Donna fell, the van drove away. It wasn't a crime of passion, Julian realized, ice running down his spine. It was a hit. He didn't just want you dead, he wanted it witnessed. He wanted to make sure it happened at a specific time. "Why?" Donna whispered. "Money," Julian said. "It's always money." He stood up, pacing the room. "Donna, think. Did Mark sign anything recently? Did he change any accounts?" Donna closed her eyes, searching the fog of her memory. He was obsessed with the mail. He got a letter last month from a company called Apex Holdings. He burned it in the sink. I only saw it because I walked in on him. Julian looked at Silas. Apex Holdings. Find them. Silas typed rapidly on his phone. Offshore shell company. Registered in the Cayman Islands. But the parent company. Julian, the parent company is a subsidiary of Vance Industries. The room went dead silent. What? Julian breathed. Mark Sterling isn't just broke, Silas said, reading the data streaming in. He's been embezzling from your company. He's a junior partner in the firm you acquired last year. He's stolen millions, and he took out a key man insurance policy on his wife, payable to the company he controls. The puzzle pieces slammed together. Mark didn't just want Donna dead. He was going to use her. Death to pay back the money he stole from Julian before Julian found out. He was going to use Julian's own money to get away with murdering the woman Julian loved. He tried to kill me to pay a debt, Donna said, her voice trembling with horror. I was just a check to him. Julian's face hardened into a mask of cold fury. He made a mistake. He thought I was just an ex-boyfriend. He forgot I'm the boss. The morning sun over the Adirondacks was blinding, reflecting off the pristine snow that surrounded the Eyrie, Julian Vance's remote glass and steel fortress. Inside, the atmosphere was anything but serene. The air hummed with the electric tension of a war room. Julian stood by the panoramic window, buttoning the cuffs of a crisp white dress shirt. His movements were precise, almost mechanical, masking the volcanic rage simmering beneath the surface. Behind him, Donna sat on the edge of the massive bed. She was pale, her leg cast, propped up on a pillow, her hand resting protectively on her stomach. The silence in the room was heavy, filled with the unspoken weight of the decision Julian had just made. We have to go back, Julian said, his voice low but absolute. He didn't turn around. He watched a hawk circling the valley below, hunting. Donna's breath hitched. To New York? Julian, you can't be serious. He'll find us. He has resources we don't even know about. No, Julian corrected, turning to face her. His eyes were dark, devoid of the warmth she had seen over the last week of hiding. This was the face of the billionaire CEO, the ruthless negotiator who ate competitors for breakfast. We're not going to hide anymore. We're not going to skulk around in the shadows while he plays the grieving victim on national television. We're going to walk right through the front door. Julian, you're a wanted man, Donna pleaded, her voice trembling. The NYPD has a warrant for your arrest, kidnapping, interference with a police investigation. If we go back, they'll put you in cuffs before you can even say a word. Let them come, Julian said, walking over to the bedside. He knelt, taking her hand in his. His grip was firm, grounding her. I need 24 hours. Just 24 hours to flip the board. Silas is prepping the jet. We're going to the Sterling Vance annual Christmas gala. Donna gasped, her eyes widening in sheer terror. The gala? That's tonight. Mark will be there. His mother will be there. Every major investor. Every news outlet in the city. It's suicide, Julian. Exactly, Julian smiled, a shark-like grin that didn't reach his eyes. The best place to hide is in the spotlight. He expects us to run. He expects us to be cowering in a motel in Mexico. He does not expect us to walk into the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel. He stood up, smoothing his suit jacket. Silas has the evidence. We have the bank transfers. We have the IP logs. But evidence in a police file takes months to process. Lawyers bury it. Judges get bought. I'm not interested in justice 3 years from now, Donna. I want justice tonight. I want to look him in the eye when his world crumbles. Donna looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the man who had caught her, the man who had saved her life, And now, the man who was willing to burn down his own reputation to clear hers. Fear slowly receded, replaced by a steely resolve she hadn't felt in years. She remembered the cold wind on the balcony. She remembered Mark's hand on her shoulder. She nodded slowly. Okay, let's go get him. The flight back to New York was a blur of tactical planning. Silas, Julian's head of security, briefed them on the layout of the Plaza Hotel. The gala is in the grand ballroom, Silas explained, tapping a digital blueprint on his tablet. Mark Sterling is the host. Security is heavy, mostly private firms hired by the Sterling family, plus a few off-duty NYPD officers. They have a perimeter here, here, and here. How do we get in? Donna asked, adjusting the midnight blue velvet gown Julian had procured for her. It was elegant, long enough to conceal her leg cast, with a cut that gracefully accommodated her 6-month pregnancy. We don't sneak in, Julian said, checking the magazine of a small handgun before tucking it into a hidden holster in his tuxedo. We enter through the main VIP arrival point, but we time it. The press will be there. We need the cameras live. The jet touched down at Teterboro at 7:00 p.m. A convoy of 3 black SUVs was waiting on the tarmac. Julian lifted Donna into the middle vehicle, settling her into the leather seat. Are you ready? He asked. No, she admitted, her hands shaking slightly. But I'm doing it anyway. The Sterling Vance Gala was the event of the season, a display of opulent wealth that bordered on obscene. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was transformed into a winter wonderland. Crystal chandeliers dripped with diamonds, white roses covered every surface, and a string quartet played soft, haunting melodies in the corner. In the center of the room, holding court like a king, was Mark Sterling. He looked impeccable in a custom tuxedo, a black mourning band pinned conspicuously to his sleeve. He was the picture of tragic grace. He sipped champagne, nodding somberly as a line of senators, socialites, and business tycoons offered their condolences. Thank you, Senator, Mark said, his voice thick with practiced grief. We just want her home. I just pray she's safe from that madman. It's hard, you know, not knowing if she's warm, if she's eating. You're so strong, Mark, a socialite cooed, touching his arm. Your poor wife. To be taken by an ex-lover like that. It's monstrous. Standing a few feet away, Victoria Sterling watched the performance with a critical eye. She looked sharp and predatory in a silver gown. She moved closer to her son, leaning in to whisper in his ear. Keep it together, she hissed, her smile never wavering for the cameras. The insurance payout clears tomorrow morning. $10 million for the key man policy, plus the life insurance once she's declared dead or missing, presumed dead. Just survive tonight, you idiot. I am keeping it together, Mark whispered back through gritted teeth. But where is she? If Vance brings her back alive? He won't, Victoria snapped. He's a fugitive. He's running. He's probably halfway to Brazil by now. Just play the part. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors at the top of the grand staircase groaned. It wasn't a gentle opening. The doors were thrown wide with force, banging against the stops. The sound echoed through the cavernous room like a gunshot. The string quartet faltered and stopped. The murmur of conversation died instantly. All eyes turned upward. At the top of the sweeping marble staircase stood a figure. It was Julian Vance. He looked like a vengeful god. His tuxedo was blacker than the night, tailored to perfection, but his presence was wild, untamed. He stood with his hands resting on the handles of a wheelchair, and sitting in the wheelchair was Donna. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. It was a physical reaction, a wave of shock that rippled through the crowd. Donna sat tall, Her blonde hair was swept back, revealing the healing bruise on her temple. Her makeup was minimal, highlighting the pale determination of her face. She didn't look crazy. She didn't look like a hostage. She looked like a queen returning from exile. "Oh my God," someone whispered in the silence. Mark Sterling froze. The champagne glass in his hand slipped from his numb fingers. It hit the marble floor, shattering into 1,000 glittering shards. The sound was deafening in the silence. Julian stepped forward to the railing, his grip on the wheelchair tightening. He looked down at the sea of faces, the people who had believed the lies, the people who had judged her. "Good evening," Julian's voice boomed, projecting effortlessly to the back of the room without a microphone. "I apologize for the interruption, but there seems to be a slight misunderstanding regarding the status of my fiancé." He used the word deliberately. Fiancé. It was a claim, a declaration of war. Mark's face drained of color, turning a sickly shade of gray. "Security!" he shrieked, his voice cracking. "Security! Arrest him! He's the kidnapper! That's him!" The crowd parted in panic. Private security guards moved toward the stairs, hands on their earpieces. Detective Miller, who had been stationed near the bar, pushed through the crowd, his hand moving to his holster. "Mr. Vance!" Miller shouted. "Step away from the woman. Put your hands in the air." "I'd be happy to, Detective," Julian said calmly, not moving an inch. "But before you put me in cuffs, I suggest you take a look at the screen behind you." Julian reached into his pocket and pressed a single button on a small remote. Behind the stage, the massive projection screen, which had been cycling through heartwarming photos of Mark and Donna's wedding, glitched. Static filled the image for a split second, and then it went black. A new image appeared. It was a document, high resolution, undeniable. It was a bank transfer record. Source: Vance Industries subsidiary accounts. Amount: $10,000. Destination: Cayman Islands, Shell Corp Apex Holdings. Authorized by Mark Sterling. The room murmured in confusion. Financial fraud. That was bad, but not kidnapping. "That's fake!" Mark screamed, pointing a shaking finger. "He doctored it. He's a hacker." "Keep watching," Julian commanded, his voice cutting through Mark's hysteria. The image changed. This time it was an email. The text was blown up large enough for everyone to read. From Mark Sterling. To redacted. Date: December 24th, 4 p.m. Subject: the problem. Body: the package will be delivered tonight. Make sure the van is in position. She won't survive the fall. I need the payout cleared by Monday. Do not fail me. The silence in the room was absolute. It was the silence of a grave. That's not," Mark stammered, backing away. He looked around for support, but the circle of people around him was widening. The senator looked at him with open disgust. The socialites were covering their mouths. "Detective Miller," Julian said, his voice cold and hard as steel. "I think you'll find the IP address of that email matches the computer in the Sterling penthouse, the one my security team remotely accessed 10 minutes ago. We also have the ATM footage of Mark checking his watch 3 times before he pushed his pregnant wife off the balcony." Julian looked down at Mark. "You didn't just try to kill her, Mark. You tried to sell her death to cover your theft. You took out an insurance policy on the woman carrying your child." The truth hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Victoria Sterling, realizing the ship was sinking, tried to step away from her son. I had no idea," she stammered, clutching her clutch bag. "Mark, what have you done?" "Don't you dare," Mark snarled, turning on his mother. His eyes were wild, the eyes of a trapped animal. "You knew! You told me to fix the money problem. You told me to do whatever it took. I never told you to kill her," Victoria shrieked. The police were moving now. Not toward Julian, toward Mark. "Mark Sterling, put your hands where I can see them," Detective Miller barked, drawing his weapon. Mark looked at the police, then at Julian, and finally at Donna. She was looking down at him from the top of the stairs. There was no fear in her eyes anymore, only pity. That pity broke him. Mark's face twisted into a snarl. He grabbed a heavy steak knife from a nearby dinner table. "Stay back!" he screamed, slashing the air. The crowd screamed and scattered. Tables were overturned, glasses shattered. Mark didn't lunge for Julian. He was too far away. He didn't lunge for the police. In a moment of pure cowardice and desperation, he lunged for the person closest to him. He grabbed his own mother. Mark hooked his arm around Victoria's neck, dragging her back against his chest. He pressed the serrated blade to her throat. "Back off!" Mark roared, his spit flying. "I'll kill her. I swear to God I'll kill her. Get me a car. Now!" "Mark!" Victoria screamed, her composure shattering into hysterics. "Let me go. I'm your mother." "Shut up." Mark tightened his grip, a trickle of blood appearing on Victoria's neck. "You pushed me into this. You wanted the money just as much as I did." The ballroom was chaos. People were diving under tables. The string quartet had fled. Julian stood at the top of the stairs, watching the scene unfold with terrifying calm. He signaled to Silas, who was standing in the shadows near the service exit. "Let her go, Mark," Julian called out. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a weight of authority that cut through the panic. "There's nowhere to go. The building is surrounded. The accounts are frozen. It's over." "It's not over until I say it's over," Mark shouted, dragging a weeping Victoria toward the heavy velvet curtains of the side exit. "I'm walking out of here. If anyone follows me, she dies." Mark reached the curtains. He thought it was the exit to the kitchen alleyway. He thought he had a chance. He threw the curtain back. Standing there, framed in the doorway, was not an escape route. It was a wall of black tactical gear. A SWAT officer, holding a ballistic shield, didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and slammed the shield into Mark with the force of a battering ram. Crack! Mark went flying backward. The knife skittered across the floor. Victoria collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably on the carpet. Before Mark could scramble up, 3 officers were on him. They pinned him to the ground, knees in his back. "Get off me! Do you know who I am?" Mark screamed into the carpet. "Yeah," Detective Miller said, walking over and slapping the handcuffs on Mark's wrists. "You're the guy who's going to die in prison." Miller hauled Mark to his feet. Mark looked up, searching the balcony again. He locked eyes with Donna one last time. She didn't look away. She didn't flinch. She simply watched him being dragged away, a ghost of his former arrogance. As the police led Mark out through the stunned crowd, Julian walked slowly down the stairs. The room parted for him like the Red Sea. He didn't look at the press. He didn't look at the police. He walked straight to the wheelchair at the top of the landing. He knelt down, ignoring the expensive tuxedo pants on the hard floor. He took Donna's face in his hands. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft, intimate, excluding the hundreds of people watching them. Donna took a deep breath. For the first time in 6 months, the air didn't taste like fear. It didn't taste like secrets. It tasted like freedom. She looked at the empty space where Mark had been, then back at the man who had burned down the world to save her. "I am now," she whispered, leaning her forehead against his. "Take me home, Julian." Julian stood up, nodded to Silas, and began to push the wheelchair toward the exit. The crowd remained silent, watching them go. As they passed the shattered remains of the champagne glass Mark had dropped, Julian didn't even step around it. He crushed the shards under his heel, grinding them into dust. 6 months had passed since the night the Plaza Hotel turned into a battleground. The bitter chill of that December Christmas Eve felt like a lifetime ago. Now, a warm June breeze swept across Central Park, carrying the scent of blooming jasmine up to the terrace of a brownstone on the Upper West Side. This wasn't the cold, sterile glass cage of the Sterling penthouse. This home was warm, filled with soft earth tones, books, and the sound of life. Julian Vance stood in the doorway of the nursery, a half-empty mug of coffee in his hand, watching the scene before him with a reverence usually reserved for art. Donna was sitting in the rocking chair, bathed in the golden morning light. She looked different. The shadows of fear that had haunted her eyes for 2 years were gone, replaced by a serenity that made her glow. In her arms, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, was Maya Vance, 4 months old. She had arrived 2 months early, a fighter from her very first breath, defying the trauma her mother's body had endured. Now, she was healthy, chubby-cheeked, and sleeping soundly, completely unaware that her existence was a miracle. Donna hummed a soft lullaby, her finger tracing the curve of the baby's ear. She sensed him watching and looked up, her smile tired but radiant. "She finally went down," Donna whispered. "She has your stubbornness, you know. She fights sleep like it's a hostile takeover." Julian chuckled, walking over to kiss Donna's forehead. "She has your resilience, Elle. That's why she's here." He knelt beside the chair, his hand resting on Donna's knee. "The lawyers called a few minutes ago." Donna's hand stilled on the baby's back. She took a breath. "And?" "It's done," Julian said, his voice grim but satisfied. The judge threw the book at him. They didn't buy the insanity plea, and they certainly didn't buy the victim act. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. He squeezed her hand. "Mark got 25 years without parole. Attempted murder, insurance fraud, embezzlement, and kidnapping. And because the crimes involved crossing state lines with the finances, the feds added another 10 years. Donna let out a long, shuddering sigh. She closed her eyes, and for a second she was back in the courtroom. She remembered Mark's face when the foreman read the verdict, the arrogance finally cracking, revealing the terrified small man beneath. She remembered Victoria Sterling, weeping as she was led away in handcuffs, charged as an accessory after the fact. The dynasty was dead. The Sterling name, once a symbol of power, was now synonymous with greed. "It's really over?" she asked, opening her eyes. "The Sterling Empire has been dismantled," Julian confirmed. "Liquidated to pay back the investors he defrauded. He has nothing, Donna. No money, no power, no legacy. He can never hurt you again." Donna looked down at Maya. "He wanted to trade her life for $10 million, she whispered, a tear slipping down her cheek. He looked at us and saw a paycheck. "And now he's looking at 4 walls, Julian said fiercely. "While we have everything." Donna nodded, wiping her cheek. She carefully stood up and placed Maya into the crib, watching her settle. Then she took Julian's hand and led him out onto the terrace. The city sprawled out before them, alive and vibrant. It was the same city that had almost killed her, but the view was different from here. It wasn't a drop. It was a horizon. Donna turned to Julian. She studied his face, the sharp jawline, the intense, dark eyes that had watched over her while she was in a coma, the hands that had literally caught her when she fell. "You saved me, Julian," she said softly. "I don't just mean from the fall. I mean, you saved who I was. I was so lost. I let him convince me I was weak. I let him convince me I was alone. You were never alone, Julian said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Even when you left me, you were never alone. I would have burned the world down to find you. I know, she smiled. She reached into the pocket of her summer dress and pulled out a small black velvet box. Julian raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk touching his lips. What is this? I thought I was the one who bought the expensive jewelry in this relationship. Open it. Julian flipped the lid. Inside sat a simple platinum band. It was understated, strong, and infinite. I don't need the 10-carat diamond you gave me years ago, Donna said, her voice trembling with emotion. I don't need the billions. I don't need the penthouse or the cars. I just need the man who slept in a plastic chair by my hospital bed for a week. I need the man who loves my daughter as if she were his own flesh and blood. She took the ring from the box and took his left hand. Julian Vance, she said, her green eyes locking onto his. Will you marry me? Again? For real this time? No press, no galas, no drama. Just us. Julian stared at her, his chest tightening, with an emotion so powerful it almost brought him to his knees. He had spent 2 years in hell without her, thinking he had lost her forever. And now she was standing in the sunlight, free. He laughed, a sound of pure, unadulterated joy that startled a pigeon on the railing. Yes, he breathed, pulling her into his arms. 1,000 times, yes. He kissed her, deep and slow, as the sun climbed higher over Manhattan. Below them, the city honked and shouted and rushed about its business, oblivious to the quiet victory on the balcony. But for Donna and Julian, the war was over. They had survived the fall, and now, finally, they were ready to fly. And that is the story of Donna and Julian. It's a terrifying reminder that sometimes the people closest to us are the ones we need to fear the most, but also that true love will literally catch you when you fall. What did you think of Mark's punishment? Did he deserve more than 25 years? And what about the mother, Victoria? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you want more dramatic stories of survival, betrayal, and romance, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.